Okay, the title of this video is the inherent problem with the political situation nowadays. I think that there's something extremely fundamental that is dysfunctional about our politics. And it's not something superficial, it's not something you can tweak, it's not something that could be fixed in any traditional sense of the word. It's something very, very, very basic to the way our politics works, and that is as follows. The problem is that the voters are not realistic about what they expect from politicians to do. And so essentially what you have is, you have a state of politics where voters are perpetually dissatisfied. If you're looking at the news lately, and by lately I really mean the last 10, 20 years, or even longer, you'll notice that the approval rating of politicians, including senators, Congress, the president, it's low. Now, the Democrats, of course, they're extremely thrilled to hear that. Oh, that means that Trump is a bad president. But that's actually not true, because the approval rating of Congress is low. The approval rating of every political office and officer who happens to occupy that office, it's all down. Down, down, down. People are just not happy with politics. The word politician even has a derogatory connotation. Okay? We don't even use that word anymore. Nobody says, hey, I'm a politician. There's actually a euphemism for that. I'm a statesman. Or you can actually say the actual office. Say I'm a congressman, whatever. But nobody says I'm a politician. It has a derogatory sense. A politician is a liar. It doesn't have to be this way, but it is. And I'll get to that in a moment of why that is indeed the case. But for now, I just want to emphasize that the problem really is, the problem with our politics lies in the fact that there is just no good way of conducting politics. There's no good way. If you run on a wholesome platform, then you will lose. You can't win. Okay? If you give the people what they want, or what they think they want, there's going to be problems. It's not going to be workable. So again, they're not going to be satisfied. So either way, either they're never going to elect you because they don't like you, or if they do like you because you're saying the right things during your campaign, then the problem is going to be that you can't do those things. So what is the most common and the most prominent example to illustrate this? It's taxes versus government services. Okay, for years, for decades, this has been going on. Politicians have been promising voters, you can have your cake and you can eat it too. We're going to give you low taxes, we're going to cut taxes, and we're going to give you more social services, better pensions to government employees. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to have more police officers on the street. We're going to have more caseworkers, so that anytime anyone calls the government about a child being abused, we can investigate. We're going to have more, just more government in general, just across the board. Government is good, right? Most people think government is good. The more the better. Unless it becomes faddish to say, hey, we're going to defund the police. But other than that, the more, the better. And this has been going on for decades like this. The more military spending, the better. The more social services, the better. Every department in the government, whether it's federal, state, or local, they all want more money, more budget. And the politicians give it to them. What are you going to do? You're going to fight them? They're going to be unhappy with you. Sooner or later, the media is going to start writing negative reports on you. You can't get away with it. You know? The politician, the people, the civil servants, they want more. They want the government to give them a greater budget. The people don't care, because all they need to hear from you as a politician is, hey, we're not going to raise your taxes. Right? And the politicians tell them that. Now, whether you actually do that or not, they try to lower taxes, but it's not always workable. In the same way as it's not always workable to actually increase government handouts and government services, but at least they campaign on that. But then when the electorate doesn't get what they want, again, they're unhappy. that is the fundamental problem with our politics. That there's a fundamental dishonesty in the way things are conducted. People think that they want something, but they're basically babies, and they have to be babied by the politicians, because otherwise politicians never get elected. Okay, so they have to be babied, but when you baby people, and in other words, they're not really adults, and they're not making responsible adult decisions, then it's just impossible for a politician to rule in a manner that is consistent, that is logical, and is in the best interest of this baby adult. They're really an adult, but they're acting like a baby because they don't understand the pros and cons of government policy, and they're not realistic about government policy. So that is the big problem. Okay, so now I promised earlier what can possibly be done about this. So there are possible. I mean, I have other things on my mind. Some of it is quite controversial and politically incorrect, and it's so politically incorrect that I'm not even going to say it. But what I will say, however, a possible solution to this problem is that what we should have is the people who vote. We do the opposite of what the conventional wisdom is right now. That everyone should vote. We want to increase the franchise. We want to broaden and expand it. Okay, we gave it to women. We gave it to African Americans. Giving it to more and more. The more people vote, the better. Okay, the better the government is, the more representative it is of the people that they govern, and the more fairer it is, the more just it is, and the better. So what I would say, I would make a very bold proposition, which is that that's not the case. What we want is we want certain type of people to vote, and namely people who are responsible. To give it one adjective, people who actually know what responsibility means, what give and take, what pros and cons are in policy and in government. If you don't understand how government works, how budgets work, how social services work, and you don't understand that any increase, everything has to be balanced, and everything comes at a cost. If you don't understand that, we don't want you to vote. So basically, and you'd be surprised, because most people don't get that. Most people don't. I don't know into details, but the bottom line is most people just don't get that. And government is a complicated thing. There's a lot of moving parts in the way budgets are created, and the way money is allocated, and the way money is spent. And people disconnect. They have a disjointed cognitive dissonance type of attitude in which they think that they can get what they want without paying the price. And so what I'm proposing is that people who are educated and understand what's involved in politics should vote. If they show political fluency, okay, they're fluent in fluency. How do they call it? Political conversancy. Conversant. Okay. Anyway, you get what I mean. Political aptitude, political. If they can demonstrate that competence, okay, you can use competence. If they're showing competence in politics, right? You don't have to be involved constantly. You don't have to research every single topic that is on the agenda, but you have to be generally educated about politics and about the way politics works and the way policy decisions are made and the costs associated with policy decisions. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't vote. Now, how do we actually achieve that? How do we prevent people who shouldn't vote from voting? The easiest way to do that is by having a competency test, a political competency test. So people will have to pass a test. And this test we can either do, there's various ways we can implement such a program, but we can do a one-time test that lasts for a lifetime, or we can do every 10 years, or we can do every 4 years, every election cycle. So basically, the person testing, right, the citizen would have to prove that they're familiar with the topics that are prevalent at that time. Okay, they understand the politics, they understand the costs associated, and they just know, they're just familiar with current events. You'd be surprised how ignorant people are about, just in general, about political events. Who stands for what? This is 100% factual. this is something that can be done in a bipartisan manner, because it is, if, for example, if somebody doesn't know that Trump is anti-immigration, I mean, that's a fact. That's 100% incontrovertible, right? Relative to the other party or other politicians, Trump has made his name. He's anti-immigration. Okay? He's anti-immigrants, especially illegal immigrants, but in general. Okay? This is a fair statement and an accurate, factual statement. If somebody doesn't know that, they shouldn't be voting in presidential elections, right? Because this is what he's so prominently and so famously known for, and you don't even know that. What are you voting for? What kind of decision can you possibly make that could benefit you, let alone the general election? You should stay 100 yards away from the polls. You should never even come close, because you don't know such a basic thing. And the same thing applies to many other topics. If you don't know, for example, that Republicans are in general, everything is in general, because you can always find outliers, you can always find exceptions. But if you don't understand that the Republicans are generally more outspoken, more opposed to the riots, protests, and whatever, all the destruction that's been going on, as Democrats, again, this is a fact.